Number 31, which equation is not a linear equation? Well, remember, for it to be a line or for it to be not a line, you either have to have variables multiplied together or variables with exponents or variables divided with each other. Okay, so A doesn't have any v times w or v divided by w or v squared or w squared, so this is a line. They're asking for which one's not a line. This one's a line. They don't have any v's or anything like that. This one is a line also. This one is not a line because it has variables in the denominator. You're dividing by v or dividing by x and y. Now see, I know it doesn't show an x divided by y, but remember, variables, especially on functions or function machines that you make an input-output table, you plug in your numbers. So what if you were to plug in 0 into x right here? 2 divided by 0, if you do that on the calculator, it would be undefined. So this would not be a line. This would be something else. This would be messed up because if you have variables in the denominator, if you're dividing by x or y, then you would end up with an undefined fraction. So D is not a line. Number 32. 2005, there were 12,000 students at Beacon High. In 2010, there were 12,250. What is the rate of change in the number of students? Okay, rate of change. Hopefully you guys remember that rate of change is just slope, but we don't really have to think about slope in terms of the formula. What we're just going to do is find the difference. Okay, so there was 12,000 and it went up to 12,250. So how many students, or the number of students, how much did it increase by? It increased by 250. Okay, now the question is, did it increase by 250? And if you look at option A, 250 per year, did it really increase by 250 per year if it went in 2005 to 2010, right? 2005 there was 12,000, in 2010 there's 12,250. So it's not 250 per year. It actually took 5 years for it to increase by 250. So let's first understand that difference. The difference, it went up 250. Okay, in how many years? In 5 years. Now if you look at all these answers, it's talking about number of students per year that it increased, number of students per year that it increased. So what do we need to do? We need to take this 250 and divide it by 5. Or another way of looking at this is visually, or thinking about it in the terms of rise over run. How much did the students' population rise? It rose 250. And what was the run? The run was 5 years, right? Rise over run, that's your slope. Okay, and whenever you have a slope, a fraction, and you could reduce it, you better reduce it. So let's do that. 250 divided by 5, that ends up being 50 over 1. 50 over 1. Now what does that mean? It means that it increased 50 students for every 1 year, per year. So which option is 50 students per year? That's option B. Moving on to number 33. Whoops. Which is the graph of y equals 2/3 x? Okay, so first, this is a direct variation or slope-intercept form. To make it a little more understandable, let's put a +0. And what that really means is that it crosses at the origin. So since we're zoomed in right here on B, might as well look at this one. It crosses at the origin. This might be the answer. And if you go up 2, 1, 2, and over 3, 1, 2, 3, well, that's definitely not the line because this is the line that it should be, right? So that's not it. So which one actually crosses at the origin and goes up 2 over 3? And that's not it. That's not it. Yep, here it is. Crosses at the origin and goes up 2 over 1, 2, 3. This is our line. Winner, winner. Okay, moving on to the next one. Translate the following sentence into an equation. It says a sum. What does sum mean? It means add. The sum of what? Of twice a number x and 13. Let's pause right here. Let me put a little comma right here. Okay, the sum, we already wrote that down as a plus sign, of two things. All right, what are we adding? We're adding twice a number x, that's 2x, and 13, and 13. And now let's go for the rest. It says, is 2 less than 3 times x? Is an equal sign. 2 less than 3 times x. Now this 2 less than, let's underline that. Well, I kind of scratched that out, sorry. But 2 less than really means to subtract 2 from. All right, now just let's think about this. If I say, what's 2 less than your age? You're not going to say 2 take away 14. Right? You're going to say 14 take away 2. All right? So 2 less than means that you're going to subtract 2 from whatever you're talking about. So for me, 2 less than my age, that's really 38, because I don't go 2 take away 40, I say 40 take away 2. What? Is he really 40 years old? Yes. Yes, I am. Okay, anyways, moving on. 2 less than, so that really means we're going to take away 2 from something else. And what is that other from something else? It's the 3 times x, so we're going to put a 3x right here. And as you could see, that is option C. Now on this next one, what we have to do is PEMDAS. So you want to start with parentheses first, and then after parentheses you want to do, there's no exponents, but there is multiplication, addition, and division. So let's go with parentheses first. We're going to have 2 times 11 take away 5. Inside the parentheses we have 6. Let's bring down everything else, the plus 9, the divided by 3. Okay, so we now have multiplication, addition, or division. Well, it's either multiplication or division, and whenever you're faced with both, you go from left to right. So let's do the 12, or the 2 times 6, which is 12. And then we could next do, let's bring down that plus sign, and next do the 9 divided by 3, which is 3. So your final answer will be 15, because 12 plus 3 is 15. Number 36, write an equation in function notation for the relation below. Well, you could just look at this line right here, and you could calculate two things that are important to write any linear equation: the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so let's zoom in right here. What is the slope? Well, you got to just pick some points and count the rise over run, looking at it from left to right. So how about even easier than slope? What's the y-intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it crosses right here, and that location is 0, so the b value is 0. Okay, now from that point, do you rise? Do you actually go up, or do you go down? You go down from left to right. So you go down how many? Well, you go down 1 and over 1 if you want to get to this next point. Okay, so that slope would be down 1, that's -1, over 1. And there's your m and your b. So now all you got to do is write your equation: y equals -1 over 1 x. 1 over 1 x plus 0. So you don't even need the plus 0. As a matter of fact, you don't even need the -1 over 1. You could just say y equals -x. Okay? Let's check out our answers over here. Let's look for y equals -x. Now there is no y, but that's okay. F of x is the same thing as y, so there's our answer. Moving on. 37. 37 says that a car is driving a distance, and it says varies directly. Hopefully you guys remember the equation for varies directly. It's y equals k x, or we also said y equals mx is even better because it reminds us of y equals mx plus b. If we read carefully, it says after 6 hours a driver traveled 390 miles. Now that's realistic. We understand what that means. Now what if I said after 3 hours? How could I figure out after 3 hours? What would he say? What is 3 compared to 6? half. So it would make sense that after 3 hours, you would take half of the 390, right? So we have an idea on how to chop this up. The bottom line is, if the car traveled 6 hours, so let me go over here to the side. If the car traveled 6 hours in one direction at a consistent pace, 6 hours, this is 0 hours. Right here in the middle, it would be 3 hours, right? And we do say that the total distance on those 6 hours, how much was it? Was it 390 or what was it? So the total distance was 390 miles from 0 hours all the way to 6 hours. So 6 hours later, he's 390 miles away. So what we could do is chop this up into 6 pieces. It's really going to be 390 divided by 6, right? So 390 divided by 6 is really going to be what will that be? And with the calculator, 390 divided by 6 is 65. So what does this really mean? That if you were to divide this into 6 pieces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each hour you're going to travel 65 miles, right? Because it's 65 miles per hour. So the equation would be y equals 65 miles per hour. So you could say 65 miles times x, which could be the per hour. Does that make sense? So after 1 hour it would be 65. After 2 hours it would be 2 times 65. After 3 hours it would be 65 times 3, and so on and so on. So your direct variation equation is y equals 65x. Now even if you look at it in y equals mx plus b form, it's really a 65 over 1. What that really means is 65 miles per 1 hour. So you would technically, if it were an XY plane, you would rise 65 on the miles and you would run 1 on the time. Anyway, back to the equation, or back to the question over here. It says, how far had the driver traveled after 4 hours? So you would simply say, with your equation, y equals 65 times 4. So let's figure that out. Y equals 65 times 4 with the calculator. And you will get 260, which is option C. Okie doke. I hope that makes sense.
37 says A.
The answer says A. And the answer is not A, because that would be 2 hours, right? 2 hours, you'd be 130 miles, traveling at 65 miles per hour. So there are several answers on the answer sheet that are incorrect, and that's why I'm going through every single question so we could find those mistakes. So 37 is a mistake on your answer sheet. The answer should be 260. Moving on to number 38. It says, translate the following sentence into an equation. Twice a number m minus 3 equals a sum of m and 5. Okay, we need to do this quickly in the next minute. Twice a number, that's 2x, or 2m, because it says to use m. So that's really 2m. It says minus 3. You don't do any switch, it just says minus 3 equals, okay, that's equals the sum of m and 5. And that's it? Yeah, that's it. The sum is just addition of m and 5. So that's easy. That's answer B. We're going to pick up number 39 on the next video.